Hey now, 580 Sports Talk going up on a Tuesday. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, the two of us here with you for the next 2.5 hours. We're off at 5:30 today. Got a little Royals baseball tonight. How about last night's performance? How about that?
Don't let the boys in blue get hot.
Ryan Yarbrough back. Awesome. 2 out of 3 starts since his injury. He's been pretty good, so we'll take that. 5-1.
Salvi went yard. Maybe that gets him back going. He's been in a deep funk.
I believe I saw someone describe him as playing like Ronnie Millsap over the last month.
I don't know what that means.
Was it Ronnie Millsap? I got to go find the comparison here.
I don't think it was Ronnie.
It couldn't have been Ronnie Millsap. I got to go find which player he was being compared to.
Is Ronnie Millsap blind? Is that why?
I believe that's the...
Yeah, okay, yeah. Ronnie Millsap blind. Yeah, that's why.
Okay, yeah, okay. That's the bit.
That's rude.
Yes, I did not say that. I saw that from someone else. Yeah, it's been bad.
Man.
It has been rough for Salvi. So for him to hit a home run in a win, that felt good. Very, very positive there.
Sure.
Royals are back in action tonight. 6:10 first pitch, 5:30 pregame on the Royals Radio Network, which, as you know, you can hear right here on 580 WIBW. But we've got a massive amount of stuff to get to today. This is the most jam-packed show since what? The second weekend of the NCAA tournament for us?
Yeah, probably. It has never been easier to, we could have filled. I better not say how much we could have filled because then they might ask us to do it.
Yeah, is it raining in Cleveland today by chance?
So, let's just say the ground is fertile. The content mines are fruitful today.
We've got loamy sports talk soil to dig through. It starts, in fact, with some Royals baseball, although it's really off the field stuff, which I think was the point in a letter that was written by John Sherman to Royals fans today. We'll get to the letter and some of the most important bits and pieces from it in a minute. I would like to offer, though, to start the show, one piece of information to John Sherman. You don't have to say anything. There are instances where you do have to say things. You do need to come to the forefront and make a statement. Northwestern's athletic director, Jerick, at some point you should probably speak since your whole department is being sued. And now Northwestern's football team is not going to Big Ten Media Day. You should probably say something. John Sherman, today, you did not need to say anything. You did not need to say a word. Just a little free piece of advice for the owner of the Kansas City Royals. But we'll get to his letter, his unfortunate letter, screed, coming up here in just a few minutes. Also this hour, we'll get to some banger quotes from George Kliavkoff, the commissioner of the Pac-12, who just continues to dig himself into a hole. Plus, we've got Random Question Tuesday. A favorite movie of mine inspired a couple of questions I got today. We've also got some Chiefs audio to get to. Patrick Mahomes and Jerick McKinnon both spoke earlier today. We are going to hear from the both of them. We will also talk to Michael Swain. It's Tuesday. That means Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk and on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. A lot going on the news front for KU, and not all of it is good. Like a member of the football team possibly facing felony charges for something really dumb. We're going to get to that coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. A bizarre situation. Tons of 580 Sports Talk headlines. What is wrong with you? And we'll get to your texts and your comments on YouTube as well. Text line number, you know it, 785-272-9429. And you can hop into the comment section on YouTube. Our channel is called Sports on 580 WIBW. We are inching closer and closer to that threshold we wanted, 300 subscribers. We would love to get there here in the next few days, next couple of weeks. So just go to youtube.com, log in with your YouTube account, Google account, Gmail. It's all owned by the same company. Log in with your one account. Search Sports on 580. That's all you have to search on YouTube. You'll find us. First result, subscribe. Check out the live stream, the comment section, and all of our other video content on YouTube as well. We've got a great question here from Christopher on the YouTube comments. And hello to everybody who's watching along or listening along today. I've got an interesting prop bet idea. Which number will be higher? The Chiefs' final score on September 7th or the Royals' record on September 7th? I'm going to assume that's the Royals' win total.
Presumably win total. So they're at 29 right now.
Yeah.
So, like, the smart money's on Royals wins, probably. I mean, they tumble into even 10 more wins between now and September 7th, which you'd think they would have to.
Yeah.
It
is the Lions defense they're playing. The Chiefs.
It's not great. Yeah, like, could I see the Chiefs putting a 45 spot up on the board? I mean, the Chiefs could score 45, and the Royals right now are on pace to win 46 total. So
I'm in a morbid way, I'm kind of rooting for the Chiefs in that one.
I think our friends at FanDuel might be interested in perhaps a prop bet.
I was gonna say you can make a call. I think.
Yeah,
you've got connections. You can make a call.
I have friends in the desert. It's true.
We'll see if we can get something like that. I've seen some unique props over at FanDuel before. I'm sure we could find that. But the Royals did make a little news today. Their owner did anyway. John Sherman has been trying to think of the right adjective to describe his ownership and his ownership style. He doesn't speak a lot, which is normally good. I don't think I would want a Jerry Jones owner for my favorite team who's just always talking.
Who does a weekly radio show during the season?
And I think gets interviewed even before the head coach does, or certainly just after the head coach does after games. Not a fan of that. Even Arthur Blank, who I think most people consider to be a good sports owner, like, don't hang out on the sidelines, dude. Like, I'm good. We're good here.
Hands off is generally good because you didn't get your money by knowing stuff about sports.
Right. But when you do speak and you are, in charge of one of the worst franchises currently going in American sports, certainly in the more active sport right now, Major League Baseball, you got to be really careful with your words because it is very easy to set people off. It is very easy to, I think, say the wrong thing. And like I said at the top of the show, remember, you do not need to talk. You do not need to write. You do not need to say anything. And that brings us to him being John Sherman, his 2-page letter he wrote to fans of the Kansas City Royals. It's described by the Royals Twitter account as an open letter from Chairman and CEO John Sherman.
Open in the sense that we can all read it.
Open in the sense that I would like to open the trash can, crumple this up, and throw it in there. Dan, this is nuts. Like, this is terrible.
So, in case you haven't read it, we're not going to read it out loud. We're not going to do story time with the 580 Sports Talk crew, but it's available if you would like to read it. If you go to twitter.com/Royals, you will find it inevitably. It is on the Royals Twitter account. I'm sure they put it up on their Instagram. I'm sure it's up on their Facebook page. It's around. Anyhow, John Sherman's open letter begins with an anecdote about meeting Dick Hauser's widow at the Royals game at home last Monday night. Cool. Totally unnecessary. I don't know why you need to bring Nancy Hauser into this other than to remind people, hey, remember when this franchise, who right now is 29-73 and has maybe the worst farm system in baseball, remember when they were good? Yeah. Remember when they were good? Here's a franchise legend's widow, and me meeting her was really neat. He says he was struck by the moment. Now I'm quoting from the letter here. My very first World Series game was historic Game 6 in 1985, managed by her husband, Dick. Standing there in the parking lot, the history, the legacy, and the passion that connects generations of those of us who love the Royals all seemed to collide. It's that same passion that also makes us eager to know what lies ahead and to know what the future holds for this storied franchise. I'm going to give you a hint. The rest of this letter does not include a way for the baseball team to win any games. That's not what this is about. This is about John Sherman's very important real estate development, brand new baseball stadium that he would like one lucky county on the Missouri side of Kansas City to build for him.
Guys, Dan just Jim Romed us.
I did.
Well, we're in for a show today, man.
We're a region with generational moments ahead of us, right, Sherman? A region that is actively building its future. The Royals are gratified to share that journey with our partners of 55 years, the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, we're name dropping. The Chiefs, currently successful, 2-time Super Bowl champions in recent memory. Record number of consecutive AFC championship games hosted. Partners of 55 years in the sense that they share a parking lot, not really partners in a broader sense. We have a new KCI airport terminal. Royals are not invested in that. An expanding streetcar line. The Royals have not invested in that. And just hosted the NFL draft. Nothing to do with the Royals. All while World Cup preparation, nothing to do with the Royals, and the KC Currents new stadium, also nothing to do with the Royals, are both well underway. We want to help drive that momentum. Money, please. Money, please.
Point of clarification.
Yes.
So those other teams are and things are good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which has helped drive a lot of this positivity. Like the Chiefs are good. Having a World Cup and the best soccer players in the world is good. The Current are good. Wouldn't it make sense if the Royals contributed by fielding a competitive team and not one of the 10 worst teams in the history of organized baseball?
Theoretically, you would think it might.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, Sherman goes on to write, and I'll pull the occasional quote out of here. The boldface print. In the next 30 days, we plan to share an overview of the ballpark district, including the broad benefits of the two sites under construction, one in Jackson County and one in Clay County. That is not new to us. Here's the other boldface type. This is the stuff. If it's in bold, he really wants you to know it, so that's why I'm going to read it. Anchored by the new ballpark, the construction project alone is expected to generate over 20,000 jobs, $1.4 billion in labor income, $2.8 billion in total economic output. This project will be a huge economic boost for the region. The inaugural year of the new ballpark is expected to generate some $185 million more in regional economic output than the K does today. You might ask yourself, are these numbers supported by anything with any basis rooted in fact? And the answer, friend, is that no, they are not. There's nothing to support the idea that a new real estate development is going to generate $185 million for the greater Kansas City area. There's nothing that supports that. In fact, studies around the actual creation of these ballpark villages, which is essentially what John Sherman endeavors to create, either in Jackson or Clay County, whichever county will lay down for him first. The economic studies have shown that the economic input is nothing like that, nothing even really close to that. But those are the numbers that are in boldface print in this open letter.
Yeah, there's no footnotes here. There's no C.1 for the study that backs this up. There is a difference. Someone actually in the Twitter replies mentions this, and it is spot on. Are these numbers from paid consultants, or are these from legitimate studies? And if you have to ask, you already know the answer,
right?
You absolutely know the answer. Between the no actual focus on the fact that he is not doing enough as the owner and the guy with the money to build a competitive team, and the fact that really ever since the minute he bought the team officially, he has been on a hell-bent crusade to get a new stadium and to move as a pet project, which, by the way, I don't mean to insult anyone. I believe you are dangerously naive if you think this is for any purpose other than building up the value of the franchise for the sake of the owner and the ownership group. This is not to rejuvenate downtown Kansas City. This is not about job creation and economic boost. No, this is about building up the value of the shiniest object in John Sherman's portfolio. And I say that not specifically as a dig at John Sherman, even though I do not feel all that rosy about John Sherman right now. Look at all of the other owners in professional sports around the United States and the fact that this has been handled in a very similar way by all of them. If you want a great example, take I-70 and cross from one side of the state of Missouri to the other. Go to St. Louis. Look at Stan Kroenke and the now Los Angeles Rams. St. Louis had a plan for them. They had a very well-designed, well-developed plan that was actually going to give more money to the Rams than they were even originally asking for the public, which is really saying something. But Stan Kroenke knew the entire time, you know what's going to make me more money? Being in Los Angeles and having a brand new stadium, even if I foot the bill for 95% of those stadium costs. And he did. The Rams, the Kroenke, whatever his corporation is named, they paid for a lot of that stadium. Still worth a lot more now. It is still worth so much more for them where they are now to where they were before. I'm not saying the Royals are moving, but this is not about, wow, look at this economic output. Look at these jobs. Like, we're not looking. I don't want to get too much into the economic side of this and like what is actually valuable to the local economy or not. But as Dan has pointed out, there are proven studies out there that show this does not work when you build a new stadium and claim huge economic growth the way that owners and teams generally make it out to be.
No, it's not good for Kansas City as much as it's good for John Sherman. This is a real estate development with one very expensive tenant of 26 guys who play bad baseball. Like, that's what this is. And John Sherman knows you're not going to build him a bunch of office space. You don't want to build him some apartments. You don't want to build him a Shake Shack walking distance from the home plate gate at the brand new Royals ballpark. You don't want to build him that stuff. He build that himself. But you might be willing to build him a new ballpark, because the threat always exists. If you don't get me a new ballpark, I'll pick up stakes and I'll go somewhere else. It's already happened in Kansas City before. I know John Sherman's a son of Kansas City. He swore up and down from the moment he bought this team, he's not taking them anywhere. But it's very clear what he wants. And what he wants is not a baseball stadium. What he wants is a chance to develop some real estate and enrich himself. This nothing to do with Kansas City. We have a texter from the 913. We appreciate your thoughts. 785-272-9429. The texter from the 913 asks, does this have to do, or what does this have to do? I think the texter means there's a dropped word in the text, but does this have anything to do with the Royals? And I would respond yes and no. No, in the sense that it has no effect on like how Zach Greinke is going to pitch tonight, or how Michael Garcia is going to do in the leadoff spot against the Guardians tonight. But I think it shows you where the priorities of this ownership group lie. The ownership priorities right now are in real estate. They are not in baseball. They're not in a ballpark. They're in real estate. And those are the organizational priorities of an organization that in a year where the expectation was a step forward, if not a championship, at the very minimum, a more competitive ball club than the year before. The Royals are 29-73. That is even after a win last night. They are 29-73, and they have a future, a near-term outlook that is as grim as any other major league organization when it comes to on-the-field results, because the farm system is one of the worst in the major leagues. You ask anybody who follows that stuff, they'll tell you the same. So that's what this has to do with the Royals, is this is what your ownership group is focused on, while the product on the field, the product he wants you to fill this brand new ballpark to go and see, is as bad as it has ever been, maybe worse than it has ever been, on pace for, by some distance, the worst season in Royals history.
And I think for me to build on top of that, I don't like this letter. I don't think it was necessary. I don't think it's well written. And I do not think you should be happy about this if you're a Royals fan because of those priorities. I would say for me personally, though, why this pertains to the Royals and the on-the-field product, even if it's not going to change how Zach Greinke pitches next time out, which is tonight, in fact, or whatever, right now on the field. I brought this up a few weeks ago. While all this stadium stuff is going on, how badly does John Sherman want to, and as you just laid out, how badly does he want to focus just on that? And how much does he want to focus on actually owning and putting together a baseball team that can compete with the rest of Major League Baseball? Because if we get through this season, we do the postmortem for the end of this season on October 4th or 5th, I think will be the first Monday after the season ends. And the Royals are going to have won somewhere between 45 and 50 games. It'll be one of the worst seasons in modern Major League Baseball history. Now we say, okay, what needs to be done? What do the Royals, bullet point list, 1, 2, 3, what are the most important things that they do this offseason? One of those things, and maybe multiple, depending on how you want to break it down, they are going to be getting major league talent onto this roster. And not just major league talent in the sense that, well, they're in the majors, so they must be talented.
In the sense that Jordan Lyles is major league talent.
That's what gets you a 2-year contract for Jordan Lyles. That is what has gotten you however many other Ryan Goins or Chris Owings or those other players. I know that was the Glass era, but you know what I mean. Like, that's what that is. But adding adding a reliable either second or third baseman who can play every day and is actually going to produce offensively. Finding a corner outfielder who not only can hit decently, but can actually play the outfield. Like getting players like that, a pitcher who is competent and older than 26 years old. Like that's the kind of pieces you need.
A pitcher that can pitch good innings and not just innings.
So if you are saying right now, and again, appreciate our texture from the 913 and appreciate the dialogue here. If you're saying right now, I'm not worried about this because I am worried about the on-the-field product, I'm worried about the team, I would say that's fine, but I would say take note of this. Mark this down that on July 25th, this open letter was published by John Sherman and released by the Royals. When we get to the winter meetings, into January, into February, and into the start of spring training, when we get to opening day next year, look at what the Royals have done from this point to that point to not, I'm not saying to build a playoff team or a playoff contending team. I'm saying a team that is not going to show up on the Wikipedia list for the worst teams of the live ball era in Major League Baseball, okay?
A team that isn't this. A team that isn't what you've seen for the last 102 games.
Yeah. So that's why I would say if you're not worried about this now, understandable, fine. But I would take note of this. And when we get to, and I got to do the math here in my head, like 6 months from now, January 25th, which is, I would say when a lot of free agency is done by that point, aside for, maybe some older veterans who are looking for 1-year deals, a lot of relief pitchers at that point. Take a look back over those previous 6 months and say, what have the Royals actually done to field a competitive baseball team? Frankly, what differentiates the 2024 Royals from the 2023 Oakland A's? What differentiates them? Because if your answer is another year of Bobby Witt and he should be better, this should enrage you, in my opinion, because this is possibly could be used as evidence that Sherman and the Royals brass do not care about improving this team while they're dealing with these other business dealings. And that, if it was my team, I would be off the rails, unhinged about that.
There are two different kinds of ownership groups in professional sports, but particularly professional baseball. There are those who view their baseball team as a competitive endeavor that is also a tenant for their real estate concern, or there are ownership groups that view what they own as a real estate tenant, an entertainment product, and the competitive part comes later. The competitive part comes after that, because what you're concerned about is they play 81 home games a year in the thing that I own, and that's 81 opportunities to generate revenue. And one would think that you might come to the conclusion that, hey, it would be better for revenue if this thing were good. But the truth of the matter is that's all extraneous revenue for a baseball owner, is what you draw at the gate, what you draw at concessions, all that stuff. Because the real money anymore in your baseball team is, again, as a real estate tenant, yes, and also as a television product. Like, that's where the money is. Like, when Bill Veeck was owning baseball teams and it couldn't draw more than 500,000 fans a year to Comiskey Park or whatever it was, and to do crazy stuff like disco demolition night or whatever to get people into the ballpark, because that was how they made money. It's not how they make money anymore. So, yeah, there would be increased revenue with a new stadium for John Sherman and the Royals baseball concern, the Kansas City Royals Baseball Club, because, yeah, you'd go to the new park, right? You go check out the new ballpark. People from miles around, anybody within the sound of our voice will come to see this new ballpark. You'd come out of curiosity. But after a while, the product has to be worth all the expense to get out to that ballpark and see the tenants. So what I am reading and what I am hearing and what I think John Sherman has unfortunately proven over the last 6 months or so, once the discussions about a new ballpark really began to accelerate, is that John Sherman doesn't view this as a competitive enterprise. John Sherman views this as an entertainment product and a real estate tenant. And if it happens to be competitive, that's great.
I wish they were entertaining. I wish we could talk about the team and not just, wow, they really suck, huh? And they won last night, and they still really suck, huh? Like, I wish we could just talk about that. But we're at a point where they are miserable, and it appears that the brass's attention is elsewhere. And that, to me, would be concerning.
And if I'm wrong, I look forward to be proven wrong. I do. I really look forward to being proven wrong, because I would love to sit behind this microphone and talk about a competitive Royals baseball team, which I have not had the occasion to do since the tail end of 2017, which is a long-ass time. And you Royals fans are as aware of this as anybody, and ought to be as demanding as anybody of a competitive product. You have to win the World Series every year. Nobody does that. Not even the team with the highest payroll does that. The team with the highest payroll in Major League Baseball this year is going to miss the playoffs. It's not always about that, certainly, but it is about a well-run baseball operation, a well-oiled baseball machine, a player development and scouting pipeline, and then the appropriate financial investments that enable you to put a competitive baseball product on the field. And if that's the primary concern for John Sherman, if that's the primary concern for John Sherman above anything else, above a brand new ballpark village playground for him in whichever county lays down for him first, I just want to hear him say it.
By the way, actual baseball news, we've got a trade. The Los Angeles Dodgers are reacquiring utility man Kike Hernandez from the Boston Red Sox.
All right.
That is that the most high-profile trade we've had so far?
He's a little more famous than Pierce Johnson. Maybe the Aroldis Chapman trade is still the biggest deal trade so far.
Well, probably is. But yeah, we are getting closer and closer. We're less than a week away from the Major League Baseball trade deadline. Will the Royals be moving guys? Jeff Passan at ESPN today in a piece seemed to not think it was a sure thing that the Royals were going to move anyone more, which would be disappointing, to say the least.
To say the least.
We've got a lot more to get to on 580 Sports Talk today. That includes, a little bit later on this hour, some news from the Pac-12 and some great, as in hilarious, quotes from George Klevkov. But first, we've got Random Question Tuesday after this, right here on 580 Sports Talk. Just getting started on this Tuesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan. He's Dan. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Off a little bit early, 5:30 today due to Royals baseball. Full show tomorrow, though. Well, almost a full show. Probably a full show. Royals have a 12:10 first pitch tomorrow, so we might be on a few minutes late, but otherwise, full show. It's Random Question Tuesday time. I've got two that are triggered by something that happened to me last night. The concept, I tweeted about this even, the concept of watching a movie on cable is kind of antiquated these days because every movie you've ever wanted to see is at your fingertips. It's on HBO Max, it's just Max, Netflix or Hulu or Prime or the Roku channel or a million different things. Or you can find it online for free. Some are even on YouTube, like free with ads. They're so easy to watch. But I came across Anchorman last night, just looking through the YouTube TV guide, and said, hell yeah, I'm going to spend my night watching Anchorman. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. Just scrolled across it. I never would have looked at the Paramount Network, but boom, there it was. A lovely experience. There's nothing quite like scrolling the channels and finding a good movie or a good show. What is something that you miss from before current modern conveniences, like channel surfing and finding a good movie?
I do miss that. I also miss like renting a movie. Like you would go,
interesting.
Yeah, like you go on a Blockbuster and being like, hey, I've heard of this. I don't know if it's any good. The newspaper might have said it was good 3-4 months ago when it was in theaters. I don't really remember. Looks like Siskel and Ebert said nice things about it in this quote they printed on the box. Maybe this will be good. Maybe it won't. It's the risk we're going to take. We hand over $3.99 to the Blockbuster clerk, and we take it home and watch it on VHS.
Yeah, I like physical media. I like having something that you can put in.
Yeah, like holding the CD, having the jewel case, reading the lyrics.
There's also something to owning something as opposed to I own a subscription to this thing where I don't actually own any of the content. There's something nice about owning it. The other question that came up because I was watching Anchorman, what is a sound that you just hate, either because it bothers you or it brings back a bad memory? And why do you hate that sound?
It's probably, what is the ring called? I don't want to play it on my phone because that would be bad, but it might cause people to think that there is like an emergency happening. It's the notification tone on the iPhone that's like the like emergency,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna really pick on my older sister right here. I'm a heavy sleeper, but I generally get up with not my first alarm, but my second alarm, and it doesn't need to be too loud. She does not, and she uses that alarm. So when I will stay with my family back home or going on a trip and we'll see them for a little bit, she uses that alarm and sleeps through like the first 8 of them. So it's just half an hour of that sound nonstop, and then the whole place wakes up. So that's on the list as an honorable mention. My number one, also because of her, you know the scene in Anchorman where he plays the jazz flute? He's on a date with Veronica.
Yes.
And he pulls the flute out of his sleeve. Great scene. My sister was in the band as a kid. She was in the marching band for 1 year in high school, played in junior high. She was a flautist. She played the flute badly. Didn't really practice until it was Sunday night, and she had to get her like practice hours done. So she would play it for a few hours so she could get her grade the next Monday. And boy, did she stink. And it was bad, and it was loud, and I'm sure she's not listening, so I don't really feel bad saying this, but yeah, I can't hear the flute without having bad memories. Terrible sound. I hate the flute.
My brother was a drummer. My brother asked for a drum set when he was a kid, and he got like the full drum set, and he was in like a little rock band with his friends, and of course, practice was at the drummer's house.
Of course.
So, but, they weren't half bad.
Yeah. Drums are at least cool.
I've probably heard the opening riff to Dry the River by Maylene and the Sons of Disaster more than I've heard any other song in the history of recorded music because of their band practicing. But yeah, that's one thing to like drums, because like even if they're loud, like I don't know what bad drums would sound like. It's just drumming. It's just percussion. Right. Like the off-key notes you might hit on a flute or a saxophone or any other kind of wood or brass instrument. Yeah, those would be tough.
Yeah. Ugh.
Those can certainly be unpleasant. Mine is movie-ish as well, or TV-ish. My wife and I have been watching The Bear on Hulu. Great show. It's very critically acclaimed, and I can confirm I'm really enjoying it. It's a really good show. And I love the use of music in the show. They've had some great, what they call the needle drop moment, where the song kicks in at like just the right time, or the song like comes up and swells at just the right time. There have been some really good uses of music, like New Noise by Refused is used extremely well on that show. Also, Strange Currencies by REM has been a recurring theme in season 2. And I think REM like re-released a remastered version of the song because it got popular again because it was on that show. Anyhow, what is your favorite use of a song or use of music in a movie or TV show?
Ooh. I'll give you one that just jumps off the top of my head because I also watched this, I think, on Paramount recently. In Forrest Gump, which has an incredible soundtrack anyway.
Yes, it does.
When Jenny has been using and is at the guy's apartment on, I think it's New Year's Eve, and then she walks out on the ledge of the balcony while Freebird is playing, that scene always really stuck with me. Between her sorrow and just general miserable life, and the use of that song when it's, I think, generally kind of seen as a positive song just because it's badass, but also used in that kind of negative countercultural kind of way. I love that scene. That jumps out to me right away.
Love to get text line or YouTube comment answers to these any of these questions. We love when you play along with us on Random Question Tuesday, 785-272-9429. This is kind of an obvious answer, but anytime Eye of the Tiger plays in Rocky, when they're about to, we're about to do the montage, that's always incredibly cool. Also, there's that great scene in Goodfellas, and I had to look up the title of the song or the artist of the song, but it's the walkthrough scene, right, where you follow Henry Hill and he's walking through the restaurant, and the song that plays while he's doing that, I had it and then I lost it and I'm trying to find it again. It's Then He Kissed Me by the Crystals. Great, like just iconic movie scene, and the use of the music really worked, where he's bringing his date through and being a big shot, showing he knows everybody. That's really well done.
The other one to me, and this is a pretty easy one to answer because it's at the very end of a movie, Where's My Mind by the Pixies at the end of Fight Club.
That's a good answer.
That's a great scene. By the way, speaking of Survivor, Eye of the Tiger, the lead singer, the songwriter, Frankie Sullivan, he lives in my hometown, or one suburb over from my hometown. So like every small time fundraiser in town, it's like special guest Frankie Sullivan from Survivor. Just at all of them. He's just like the generic stereotype local celebrity that we have.
There are so many great, like the Rocky movies have just some great use of music, like No Easy Way Out, when he's driving aimlessly through the, like doing 190 miles an hour in his sports car around the mountain after spoiler alert, after Apollo dies. And I don't think it's a spoiler alert. The movie is older than me. And I'm no spring chicken. Or Living in America by James Brown, and that same movie is so great. It had me thinking about that. A really good, the Bear, really good use of music in that show. Really good songs.
We've got a couple here. Actually, we're going to get to a commercial real quick. We'll get to some of these answers on YouTube in the text line in just a moment. If you've got yours, send them in, 785-272-9429, or our YouTube channel, Sports on 580 WIBW. We'll get to a commercial. We'll get to your answers, and we'll get to some great George Kliavkov quotes. Quotes after this on 580 Sports Talk.
I'm Jim Ch-
We've got a couple quick answers to Dan's question from Random Question Tuesday, last segment. Favorite use of a song in a movie or TV show? Mark on YouTube says Johnny Be Good and Back to the Future.
Your kids are going to love it.
Oh, yeah. From Jason, he says Pearl Jam's cover of Love Rain Over Me from Rain
Adam
Over
Sandler
Me.
film. Yeah,
yep.
Sure.
Vance with The Ride of the Valkyries in Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about as cool as it gets. Danger Zone by Kenny Loggins in Top Gun.
They open with that. It had been a while since I've seen it. Yeah, the opening, yeah.
And any song used in Dazed and Confused.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We also had one in from the text line from the 785 that said the very beginning of Dazed Confused when they play Sweet Emotion by Aerosmith.
Yeah.
Two more I forgot. Use of Lowrider by War in Gone in 60 Seconds, which is one of my favorite movies. Yeah. And also Damn It Feels Good to Be a Gangsta by the Ghetto Boys in Office Space. Exceptionally well done.
That's really good.
That or when they use Still when they're damaging the printer in the field.
Yeah, there's a lot of good ones. Keep sending those in throughout the show. We'll get to those as they come in. We did want to touch on this real quick. This was published yesterday by Brandon Marcello over at 24/7 Sports. A sit-down Q&A he did with George Kliavkoff, the commissioner of the Pac-12. After old George had some, just let's be frank, some bad quotes. Did not have a great look during his...
Did not cover himself in glory at Pac-12 Media Day.
No, didn't exactly improve his image or the league's image. So Brandon Marcello, and you found this, Dan, sat down and spoke with George Kliavkoff about a lot. And again, Kliavkoff doesn't do anything to make himself look good here. Like, none of these questions. The first one, the talk out there among the presidents and ADs is that they want a TV deal at least $31.7 million per year per team or higher, which matches the Big 12's new contract. Will the Pac-12's deal meet that number or be higher? Kliavkoff says, I'm not going to tell you where our media deals are coming in. It will be enough for them to all sign their grant of rights. That's the important kind of milestone. If you're not going to answer that question that everyone's been talking about for over a year, the answer is no. The non-answer is the no answer.
Yes.
Here.
Non-answers are very much answers in this case, particularly when everybody knows that those schools, the Pac-12 schools, were anticipating something in the $40 million range. That Kliavkoff talked about the $40 million range. And now the range they're talking about is enough to get them to sign their grant of rights. Oh, really? How sure are you? More from this Q&A, because this is a string of questions that he continues to sound, because the follow-up question to that is, are we talking about the Pac-12's finalized TV deal before the season kicks off? To which Kliavkoff responds, sometime in the near future.
No, that's the answer. No.
Will your game of the week in football in the new deal be on a linear channel, a streaming-only platform, or some hybrid? That's a good question.
Great question.
Yeah, honestly, like there's nothing wrong with having a streaming component. The Big 12 has a streaming component. There's a streaming component for the SEC and the ACC too, with their Network Plus. That out of certain markets, you can only get on SEC Network Plus or whatever it is. Will your game of the week in football in the new deal be on a linear channel, a streaming only platform, or some hybrid? Kliavkoff. The structure of those deals is something we're not ready to get into. Yeah, because they don't exist.
That's worse than no, because there were three options. You can't just say no. How do you not know this at this point, man? How is this possible? How is this possible?
Follow up to that from Marcello. You and I have discussed previously the possibility of partnerships for events with other conferences. I know the Pac-12 and ACC expressed a desire for non-conference football games and basketball events. I remember that. I remember that conversation being a big deal, right? It was not long after UCLA and USC announced they were going to the Big Ten, and there was a lot of uncertainty for the other three Power 5 conferences. And that was one of the first things that came up. Like before the Big 12 even got into the idea of jumping the line on their TV stuff, the idea that the Pac-12 and the ACC might have an alliance. So that's the question. The answer, I really think we need to get through our media rights first.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? You know who can control that? You.
It's not that I don't think they can, like, it's not even that I don't think they can see the finish line from where they're at. I think they've wandered completely off the course.
Yeah, I agree. Like, there is no good explanation. You might give me an explanation, but there's no good explanation for why you cannot give concrete information at this point. I mean, it's just a complete failure on your own behalf and to your constituents.
Because I don't understand what the benefit is of being cagey.
Just the fact that you don't know because you don't want to lie because it doesn't exist. That's all I can think of.
It's the girlfriend in Canada response.
And I know we have talked about this before, that at this point, I imagine Colorado and maybe others are simply in a place where they're saying, we are just waiting for the number. We might decide to leave after that, but we are going to wait until this information is posed to us. And we are going to have it shown to us what we're looking at. At what point do the schools, and not just Colorado, who clearly is the team at the forefront of potentially realigning again, but at what point does Washington say, all right, dude, what's going on? Like, we got to make sure we know this conference is going to exist because we might bolt for the Big 12 because Big 10 doesn't seem all that interested. We might have to go find somewhere else. So what is it going to be? Or Arizona, hey, look, they've shown interest in us too. They want our basketball. They wouldn't complain about our football. What's the deal here? What are we getting? And if you can't give me an answer, we need to have more serious talks with the Big 12 again, or with someone else, or we'll go independent for football or something. We got to figure something out. I wonder when that period comes.
And he managed to keep them together and keep them under the thumb long enough to not announce they were bolting this summer. But okay, what happens when there's nothing in Al Capone's vault? Because that appears to be the likeliest outcome at this point.
Just keeps digging a deeper hole. I don't even know how that's possible at this point. We've got an hour and a half left on 580 Sports Talk today. Next hour, we'll hear from Patrick Mahomes. We'll hear from Jerick McKinnon, and we'll talk to Michael Swain. Plus, what is wrong with you? It's all next hour on 580 Sports Talk. Hey now, 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk going up on a Tuesday. Brendan Dworzynski here, Dan Lucero here. Thank you so much for spending some time with us this afternoon. We're off at 5:30 today on 580 Sports Talk because we've got Royals baseball. 5:30 is when pregame coverage begins on the Royals radio network. First pitch is set for 6:10 as the Guardians take on the Royals. Will the Royals be able to win a second straight game? They've only done it a couple times this year. I hope they can.
Yeah.
If they earn a sweep, it would be their first 3-game winning streak of the entire season.
It sure would. It might also throw the Guardians into a tailspin. They are now 4 games out of first. Minnesota's come out red hot in the Central and are now 6 games over 500. So it's not so funny, the Comedy Central anymore now, is it?
Yeah.
They've got a better record than do they have a better record than the last place teams in the no, they still don't have a better record by percentage points than the last place teams in the American League East.
Great job, everybody involved. But getting closer.
Gosh, the AL East standings are so wild. Like when I was 13, that's how the standings would have read if I stood on my head. Baltimore, Tampa Bay, Toronto, Boston, New York, in that order.
Yeah.
Boston, New York tied for last place. You hate to see it, but more than that, you love to see it.
Baltimore's got the best record in baseball.
Yeah, they do.
How about that?
Oh, well, best record in the American League. Atlanta's still got the best record in baseball. Yeah.
By the way, real quick note about baseball. Have you seen what has been, and it might have changed. No, I don't think it did change yesterday because the Braves didn't play. Have you been following the statistical leaders in the National League over the last couple of days?
I have not.
You know who is now leading the National League in OPS?
Is it?
The headline is, it's not Ronald Acuna Jr.
Yeah, I was about to say, if it's not Ronald Acuna Jr. anymore, then who is it?
It's his former teammate, Freddie Freeman, has been red hot. Now, he went just 1 for 5 with a single yesterday, so that didn't help out those numbers. But I think the MVP race is getting a little tighter in the National League. Now, it does help Acuna that he has been greater for longer this season, and also his team is the best team in Major League Baseball.
Ronald Acuna Jr. still the most baseball reference wins above replacement of any position player in the league but one. And I promise you, you will not guess who is tied among all players in Major League Baseball in wins above replacement with Ronald Acuna.
Position player?
We're talking strictly position players here because, Shohei Ohtani still, because, he does both things.
Is this NL or all players?
This is all players, but he is a National League player. I'll give you that. You won't get it. Because I know that because I wouldn't get it.
Corbin Carroll.
No. Good guess. He's top 10.
Yeah. He's on pace, I saw, for 34 dingers and 47 steals.
Yeah, he's a hell of a player.
Yeah, he is.
Nobody knows anything about him because he plays for the Arizona Diamondbacks, who nobody watches, and they're never on TV, but he's awesome.
Yeah, he rules. Had him on my Diamond Dynasty team for quite a while. He's my starting center fielder. I have no idea.
It is Ha-Sung Kim of the San Diego Padres. Most of this is defense, but he's having a nice year at the plate. An 810 OPS, 14 dingers, 18 steals. But he has been brilliant defensively at second base.
Very interesting.
And anywhere else they put him, but mostly for second base.
So that's talking baseball here on 580 Sports Talk. Royals baseball coming up a little bit later on tonight. This hour, we'll talk some KU sports with Michael Swain from Fog.net. Jayhawk Weekly at the bottom of the hour. A lot going on for KU sports, football and basketball this week. Not all of it good. So we will talk to Michael about that coming up here in just about 25 minutes or so. We've also got today's What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. But I wanted to start with the Kansas City Chiefs this hour. We'll hear from Patrick Mahomes and Jet McKinnon in just a moment. The big news from Chiefs camp today, though, Dan, Kadarius Toney, surgery to repair a torn meniscus. They are hoping he can get back by week 1, but Andy Reid made it clear it might take a little bit longer than that to get him back. What's the concern level now, knowing what the injury is and knowing how long the Chiefs might not have him?
It's a little higher, but again, you trust that the guy we're about to hear from is going to make the offense float no matter who he's throwing to, and that as long as Kadarius Toney is at his best when the games matter the most, you'll take that. It's sort of like the Percy Harvin corollary. I think Kadarius Toney and Percy Harvin have a lot in common. There's an injury history. There's the University of Florida tie. Obviously, this guy is about the fastest player on the field anytime he's on the field similarity. You want him for the games that matter the most. And if that means that they've got to clean up this cartilage in his knee and make sure he's all the way good by the time the rubber meets the road, then yeah, do it now. You'd rather this happen now than in week 6. So I guess I'm not any more concerned.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, it's a knee injury for a wide receiver. There's a baseline level of concern I have for, a relatively minor knee surgery, and it's not insignificant, but also I'd rather this were happening now than week 7.
I am going to make a prediction that he starts the year on the PUP list. And I know that you lose 6 weeks for that, and they're hoping he can be back by week 1 or 2 or 3. You think, God, why would you want to miss an extra 3 weeks? I wonder if that's just extra precautionary, get him as tuned up, as ready to go as possible, try to get him for more important games down the stretch. I'm not hoping that happens because I hope he can go week 1. That'd be great.
Yeah.
But I would not at all be surprised if he does end up on the PUP list to start the season. With that, let's get to a couple of Chiefs players speaking today at Chiefs training camp, including QB1, Patrick Mahomes, speaking today, his first media availability of the week. Let's check out what Patrick Mahomes had to say earlier on this afternoon at St. Joe training camp.
We're in the offseason, so I think that helped out a ton. And his talent is, everybody knows how talented he is, and I'm just excited for him to learn the offense from the start. Last year, he picked it up as we're in advanced mode. Now he gets to see the beginner and work his way through it, and I'm excited for him when he gets back that he'll be ready to go.
Is there anybody you're looking to step up now within the?
Not necessarily. I think a lot of guys will kind of fill that role throughout training camp. I want guys to just be themselves. I think you've seen in this offense is it can be ran a lot of different ways. And so obviously when Kadarius is in there, we run it one way because of his talent and what he can do. And when he's not in there, we can run a different way to really accelerate the other guys' talents. And guys like Sky Moore, Rashee Rice will step up as well as guys like Marquez and Justin Watson. We have a lot of tight ends. We have a lot of depth in this entire team this year. And so I'm just excited for guys to go out there and seize their opportunity.
Patrick, what do you look for? Guys who haven't played with get out of them all that basics. Whether it's blue tackles or Richie and shoot, just guys that haven't played with before.
Yeah, I like to test guys because I feel like now I have a good sense of the offense, obviously. So I like to try to do stuff to see how guys react. That's using a lot of different cadences throughout practice and see if the offensive line will sit in there with the new guys. And be off the ball at the right time, or if that's with the receivers. I know there's one down in the red zone today with Justin Ross where I try to throw him the fade ball next, and that's not something that he necessarily is taught to do, but it's something that it's the next step. And so let's try it out here. If he messes up and he doesn't do it the next time, then whenever he gets to the game days, he'll do it right and score a touchdown. And so it's just stuff like that. It's just testing guys, doing that stuff that maybe not as talked about in the meeting room, but it's stuff that we do throughout our offense, and this is where you have to test it out. And Coach Reed gives me the freedom to do that.
Guys, last year, maybe you weren't best practices for this game.
I think it just helped with me being able to teach the guys what I want, and Coach Reed give me the freedom to do that. And obviously, like I said, we do some stuff out here. There might be some mistakes, and we go in the film room, and Coach Reed lets me talk a lot. And obviously, he's going to get his points across because he's the master of the offense, but he can let the guys hear it from me. And give me the freedom to do that. And then we do the walkthroughs, same thing. And so having that experience last year with a lot of new guys, I can kind of talk through it and have more confidence knowing that I'm saying the right thing. Yeah, it's just evolution of being the quarterback position is being able to learn more and then teach the other guys around you.
Patrick, early on here, it seems like there's a pretty clear back and forth between you and Trent McDuffie sort of going after each other. What have you seen from him and how has he improved maybe year to year?
Yeah, I knew last year he was going to be good because he's always in the right spot. And it's now the next evolution for him is just making the interceptions. And so he's always going to be in the right spot. He's a smart player. He's physically gifted. He does a lot of great things. And I talk to him and Snead and all those guys a lot. So especially out here, I'm going to test you. I'm going to try to see if I can get those throws in. And I think you saw yesterday I got one in, and today he got his hands on one and almost had an interception. So today's where we get to learn, is where you test each other and try to see how you can improve together. And some days that's me making throws, some days that's them making plays. But luckily I have Coach Reed and Coach Nagy and all these guys that want me to push the limit to an extent and still go out there and have success.
Last two, we'll go Nate and Bob.
Patrick, I know the pads haven't come on yet, but just What are you hoping to see on Friday? And what are your thoughts on Drew Tranquil, seeing him in this environment in training camp?
Yeah, as far as the pads, I mean, you just want to see that next step both sides of the ball. I mean, you want to see, especially with the offensive line, I mean, 2 new guys on the edges, how we can do in the run game, what we can get away with if we're pulling guys or if we're zone blocking, whatever that is. You want to see where you can be at. And there's times, especially in training camp, where I'll leave the run on and just see if we can just run it. Like maybe not the right box that we're looking for, but let's see if the guys can make it happen anyways. So definitely that with the pads. And then with Drew, I mean, he's just a smart player. And I hated playing against him because he's one of those linebackers that's like calling out what you're saying at the line of scrimmage because he studies that much. And so I've already had to make up like all brand new code words because I can hear him on the other side. So he's a smart player. He's gifted. I mean, he's really good at covering as well as being in the right spot in the run game. And so I think it's just, I mean, that linebacker room, if you look at it, man, top to bottom, it's great players. And so I'm excited for that room to really take that next step because we got a lot of great players in that room. I think it'd be one of the best groups in the league.
Last one, Patrick, we're speaking to Jerick here shortly, and I wonder if you have an appreciation of the arc of his career and what it's taken for him to keep doing it at this age, still be so dynamic after things he's been through.
Yeah, no, I mean, you said it. I mean, he's always been a great player. And injuries, I mean, they can get a lot of guys, especially in the NFL. Sometimes you get passed over because of those injuries. And he does it the right way. And I think that's why, even though he's had the injuries, he trains and kind of, I was talking with Jerick, he's in the meeting room, he's learning so that when he gets back from injury, he's ready to go. And he's always doing stuff the right way. And I think it helps teach everybody, not just the running back room. It teaches me is like, hey, I might not be getting a rep, but I'm on the side talking through what's going on. I'm making sure that everybody in my room knows exactly what I'm thinking so I can learn from them. And so that's the type of players you need on this team. And I've always said it. It's like when he's back there, I don't have to say he might call the protection for me because that's how well he knows the offense. And so just having a guy like that you trust that can make plays whenever it counts, those are the type of guys that I'm glad that we have on this team.
Can you just elaborate on the dimension he brings that way? I mean, what it is he actually provides the offense?
Yeah. I mean, he's just, I mean, people talk about a vet, someone that just you learn from. But, I mean, I think that's the definition is him. I mean, obviously he can go out there and make it happen. I mean, you see him, he makes the biggest plays in the biggest moments of the season, in which you love having those guys. But he's not. I don't want to. I mean, I guess the word is selfish. He's not keeping all that knowledge to himself. He's telling everybody. And you see guys like Travis Kelce is the same way. I mean, it's not about just being the greatest player that you can be. It's about making the team great. And he's one of those players that makes the entire team great.
That is Patrick Mahomes speaking earlier today in St. Joe at Chiefs training camp. The thing that stands out to me the most about that Mahomes availability there, does he sound a little more coachy to you this year? That sounded a little bit more offensive coordinator-y than I think I'm used to hearing him. Not that he's ever not sounded smart about football or been a good teammate or anything like that, but just the way he was speaking, he sounded, and I know he's going into year 7, which is unthinkable that he is about to enter year 7 of his career, but it does feel more mature, I guess, in a way. And again, not that he's ever been immature, but just from like dang, he is one of the veterans now. He is one of the oldest guys, one of the most experienced guys on the team now. He's got different things he can offer, different ways he can coach guys up. I don't think it's a bad thing. In fact, I think it's a great thing. There was a little bit of a different tone to that, I think, that we've heard from him in the past.
Well, he and Andy Reid have been joined at the hip now for so long that I think it's inevitable that he starts to see the game like his coach. I think that it's also a function of him having been around and in the offense so long that that's now the way that he talks about it. He's not the student anymore. I mean, he always to an extent is going to be. I'm not saying he's done learning or done getting better, but I think that there's more of the teacher in him now. I think that's a really interesting observation. And I think that's just the evolution of a quarterback, particularly one as cerebral as Mahomes is, who does as much time in the film room as Mahomes does, and who has the sort of working relationship with his coach that Mahomes does, and the kind of coach that Andy Reid is.
I think back to when McCole Hardman was a rookie, and it was a big thing that preseason that, dude, you got to keep running. You have to keep going to get the ball. Do not give up on a play. Do not stop your route if you don't think you're getting the ball because you could get it. Keep going. I'm going to overthrow you if you don't. Those kind of things. I feel like the way that was handled, and everybody was younger, and it was a different time, and it was, 2 Super Bowls ago now, which is, again, crazy to think about. But the way that was talked about versus the way this was talked about, and working with these guys and seeing what they can do, and we're trying new things and pushing the limits and getting them used to the offense, there was a different kind of maturity to it, I think, and that should be really exciting for Chiefs fans because he's still super young. He's still incredibly young, and man, what a joy Patrick Mahomes is to cover. I tell you what, it's just, I know as a fan, you have a fun time watching him, but it's also from this perspective, from this side of the microphone, it's cool that we have players to cover who are like him, who are incredibly gifted and also good interviews and very mature like that. From one veteran to another, let's go to one of the other oldest guys on the team, who also at this point is one of the more experienced actual Chiefs on the team as well. Jerick McKinnon, coming off one of the best seasons of his career. We got to hear from McKinnon for the first time during training camp earlier today. Here's what Jet McKinnon had to say this afternoon.
Jerick, how badly do you feel like Isaiah wants to be able to do everything right now?
Very bad. I mean, everybody knows the energy he brings. His motor, the way he's engined and the way he works. But at the same time, it's a process. And not only is it about camp right now, it's about down the road and being healthy for the season, and then having that durability lasting the season. So we know how bad he wants to be out there, but at the same time, he has to take care of himself, get to 100%, and then be available for the team.
Just knowing how many years you had, how do you kind of tempering that, or do you get ready, but also be careful about to learn?
Say it one time.
Just considering how many years you had in the league, tempering, needing to get ready, but also making sure you got enough for the season.
It's all about being smart. Obviously, it's training camp. We're gonna come out here, we're gonna work hard every day, we're gonna run hard every day. But at the same time, away from being on the field and away from meetings, you got to take care of your body. You got to make sure, at the beginning of the day, you start at 100%. Obviously, you knock down with the exercise and all that stuff, the workouts. So whatever it takes between the end of that time and the next day, you got to prepare yourself to get back as close as you can to that 100%. You never really fully reach it, but, there's nothing stopping you from still trying to reach it each and every day to get back up being 100.
Sorry. You look at your career. If I told you when you first started, way back when with the Vikings, that this is how your career would have gone, would that surprise you in any way?
As far as what?
What's that?
As far as what exactly? Just in general?
Yeah.
Maybe the injuries, yeah. But as far as just lasting and making it at this point in my career, it's something that I set out for myself. I work hard to get to this point, stay at this point. So as far as that aspect, no. But in the terms of other things, yes.
Given the way the league is operating right now, you've had multiple contracts, you've played in multiple teams. From your perspective, what is interesting right now to you about how the running back market is going in the league? And I guess what is most frustrating, given you've been obviously in those negotiations as a running back?
It's very tough. The running back position is a lot of demand on that position. As far as running the ball in between tackles, taking that beating. Nowadays, basically turning into a receiver out the backfield, pass blocking, no protections. Definitely in that aspect, the positions along the way has been devalued because it's such a passing league. When you step back and look at it, it's definitely something that should be more valued than what it is. And as far as, the contract situations, I guess it's kind of based on the market. So it's kind of hard to really say, how that happens. It's at every position every year, it fluctuates. You got a guy who gets paid this much, he sets the market. Everybody kind of gets their contract off of that guy. This year it's been kind of difficult. The top running backs been getting franchise tags. So, when the top guys get franchise tag, that's the ceiling. So everybody else falls under that. So as far as the guys getting franchise tag, I feel them on that side. They put in their work, they pay their dues. They're looking for a payday, a long term with some guaranteed. It's just one of those things that, it's kind of bittersweet about the game and the business part, when it comes down to that.
Jerick, Patrick Mahomes basically.
I've been looking to see you too. How you doing?
No, I'm so happy to see you. But Patrick basically called you Yoda.
Yeah.
You can even call the plays. You know so much. You've studied so much. How do you feel you and Patrick have evolved in a way that allows that to happen? And do you feel that's an essential part of what you do, adding that wisdom to the offense?
Definitely. Just having my quarterback background in college and then playing, like you said, playing in multiple systems and, being able to see the overall view of the offense, not just from, running back position. It definitely benefits me coming into the game and, being on the same page with Patrick. I think last year definitely showed being on the same page, hooking up multiple times, touchdowns here and there. So I definitely think it benefited. So for me, it's about, taking what I learned and, trying to trickle it down to the younger guys and help them understand, the overall view so that, no matter who's in there, it's the same result.
Do you feel like Yoda?
I feel young. I still got the juice. I don't know about Yoda. Well seasoned.
Jerick, you still got the juice. I wonder what you think it took to get through that period of the injuries and at the increasing age at the time. I mean, what inside you do you think drove that?
Just my will, heart. That's not a tough injury to come back from. Seen guys come back better than before. You've seen some guys come back not better than before. So, that's just a testament to will. God believing in God. Family, friends, close ones, my teammates. So, sometimes he stops the whole practice just to get, what he wants, what he's envisioning, across into the receivers. It's the same way in meeting, same way in walkthrough. So he definitely has that freedom, control within the offense. And then, just his leadership. Everybody knows how big that is when he's out there, his presence and stuff like that.
What kind of things does he say? I imagine it's not just like what he
It's more of how he expects and want things to be done. So more of communication, so there's no miscommunication. Everybody knows when there's miscommunication, nothing good happens from that. So it's just about, being outspoken, make sure everybody's on the same page and come out here and execute.
Charles was talking about being excited for the pads to come on and the physicality, things like that. As a running back, are you as excited for the pads to come on? Or
That's what it's about. We're going to run the ball. I don't know if y'all been seeing the last couple of days. We probably only had like 4 runs. So the pass coming on means we're gonna get to touch the ball a little bit more. The guys up front, we're gonna get some push. There's gonna be some real competition in the trenches, and then we get to see what all the guys do with the ball in their hands, and then we get to see what the linebackers do. The safeties coming down, what they get to do, and it's gonna be fun. We get to real football now.
That is Jerick McKinnon, one of the Chiefs' stud running backs, speaking to the media earlier on this afternoon. I think McKinnon offers something really interesting in the whole running back value debate because he has the skill set that teams want in running backs because he is a good pass catcher and he's fast and he can pass block. But he also is paid almost nothing and has absolutely outperformed his contract every year he's been with the Chiefs. So he's kind of in an interesting spot. And I think I agree with everything he said about the position. He's just sort of, I certainly deserve more, but I'm also exactly what the league wants, but I don't necessarily want to say I deserve more because I've torn the ACL twice and I'm happy with the security here.
Yeah. That'll give you perspective, right? Like we talk about the lifespan of a football player, not like a literal lifespan. That's a whole other conversation, but the career lifespan of an NFL player is generally pretty short. And when you suffer a catastrophic injury like a torn ACL, that shortens your career expectancy even more. And then when you do it twice, it shortens it even more. So he's really a survivor. And I think that gives him a different perspective on things than, Derrick Henry might have or Jonathan Taylor might have right now. And I think it's a valuable perspective to have. And I think it's a perspective that, I think that there's a certain level of satisfaction McKinnon probably has in his career being at the point where it's at.
Good stuff. I like listening to Jerick McKinnon. I think he's got an interesting perspective on a lot of things. He's been with a lot of coaches, been in a lot of systems, has had wildly different levels of success in the 3 places he's been. And he's been such an asset for the Chiefs. What a great signing that was a couple of years back. We've got to get to our first break of this 4 o'clock hour on 580 Sports Talk. But when we come back, we've got today's What Is Wrong With You here on 580 WIBW.
The best thing
hell?
What the hell?
It's time for today's What Is Wrong With You on 580 Sports Talk, sponsored by Top City Metal Supply. Our current winner for the week is the Facebook judge. They won yesterday. Judge is wiling out all over America. A judge that during a murder trial could not be bothered to listen to testimony or to listen to what the jury had to say or the various lawyers in the courtroom. Had to check Facebook. Had to poke their cousin. Had to pay for a super poke or whatever.
Is that what they're still doing on Facebook?
Remember poking?
I do remember poking.
Yeah.
That was
what a dumb thing.
That was early social media flirting.
Yeah. Yeah, the poke or all the games you could play.
Mm-hmm.
I was a big Mafia Wars guy back in the day. Farmville. Oh yeah. Maybe she had to tend to her farm in Farmville. Anyway, that is the Facebook judge. That's our current winner for the week. Before we get to our two news stories, a reminder that Top City Metal Supply cuts the metal you need to your specifications, which saves time, money, and material. Never settle when it comes to your metal at Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field. Our stories today are going to begin in California, Dan, where we meet 42-year-old Andrew DeBoer from Chino Hills, who is under arrest because he created a fake fire department and then posed as a firefighter. DeBoer allegedly went to great lengths to carry out his con. During a search of his home, and again, this is a 42-year-old man, investigators recovered a fire investigator identification card, badges, decals, and uniforms with patches for the Santa Muerte Fire Department, which does not exist. They also found firearms, body armor, and a duty belt. While scouring through his home, deputies also seized a Ford F-350 truck with California exempt license plates, emergency lights, and fire decals on the front hood and rear tailgate. The suspect seems to have taken further steps to solidify his cover. If you Google Santa Muerte Fire Department, an operational website for the non-existent agency appears, and many of the links redirect you to legitimate agencies.
He really covered his tracks.
However, the contact us page lists an address that actually redirects you to a shopping center that contains a UPS store and a hair salon in El Centro, California. There's even a fictitious linked page for the fake fire department.
LinkedIn?
Yeah, a LinkedIn page. That's
the LinkedIn page. Okay, I have two questions.
Mm-hmm.
They are two questions made famous by former Philadelphia Eagles running back Ricky Watters.
Mm-hmm.
For who? For what? That is my question.
Had to make connections. Had to...
Not just the LinkedIn page. I'm talking about why you create a fake fire department. For who? For what?
Great question. By the way, this LinkedIn page featured a photo that was an altered picture of a U.S. Forest Service firefighter. So the police first learned of DeBoer 9 days before his arrest when a Chino Hills man reported an odd encounter with a firefighter. The victim called authorities after they were pulled over by a man posing as law enforcement while driving the Ford F-350 with fire decals. During the stop, go ahead.
Pulling people over? Just impersonate a police officer.
He posed as an arson investigator, fully decked out with his duty belt and a firearm, his Santa Muerte Fire Department badge, baton, pepper spray, and handcuffs. This dude was going ham. The 41-year-old has been booked for false imprisonment and impersonating an officer. He may have victimized others in San Bernardino, Riverside, Los Angeles, and Orange counties. And he is currently being held.
I just don't understand.
Yeah, why?
I'm going to pretend to be a fireman in my own fire department.
Are you 8?
Right. It does. It sounds like something a 6-year-old would do.
Like putting a fire sticker on your big wheel. I'm a fireman. Oh, that's cute.
The siren goes, woo.
This guy is in his early 40s.
Yeah, like what's the con? What's the game? Like, is he or does he just really enjoy pretending to be a fireman? Maybe he does.
Maybe.
The losing story today, we go to Chester County, Pennsylvania, Wallace Township, a Dunkin' Donuts where a 72-year-old man from Illinois threw a cup of coffee and bagels at a pair of employees, one 17 years old and one 20 years old, both of whom were from Reading. Officials say the man was later cited for harassment involving physical conduct due to his behavior. It's unclear what led to the dispute between the man and the employees. What is clear is he threw bagels and a cup of coffee at a couple of teenagers, and he's 72. It's funny. It's not a guy pretending to be a fireman.
He bageled them.
He did.
Yeah, that is funny. I'm going with the guy who faked his own fire department.
He made a LinkedIn.
Yeah, the LinkedIn. That's great.
He made a LinkedIn.
When in theory, that's the one social media more than others, maybe Facebook, where like you kind of have to know the people in real life. Like that's kind of the whole bit.
Right. Maybe it was to pick up women.
Maybe LinkedIn is the new Tinder.
If any firefighters listen to this program, is it a job that helps you more than any other profession? Maybe succeed with the opposite sex. Maybe that was his game.
But why was he trying to terrorize civilians then?
Because he could.
I guess so.
Like, pull him over. What are you going to do? I'm just checking to make sure your car's not on fire. If it were, me, a real fireman, would be able to do something about it.
Sir, do you have a fire hose?
No, but I got a LinkedIn.
Gun.
My LinkedIn says I'm a fireman.
I got body armor. Does that beat the Facebook judge?
Yeah.
The fake firefighter. That is our new winner for the week, a unanimous sweep for our man from the San Muerte Fire Department. That's our new winner in What Is Wrong With You, brought to you by Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. Michael Swain joins us after this for Jayhawk Weekly on 580 Sports Talk.
The clue.
Kansas tonight. In just a moment, our good pal Michael Swain from Fog.net is going to join us here on 580 Sports Talk for Jayhawk Weekly. You can find Michael on Twitter at mswain247, and of course, all of his great work covering KU over at Fog.net. He'll hop on the phone with us here in just a second. A lot going on in the KU sphere today, and as I teased earlier, not all of it is especially good at the moment. We've now got Michael on the line. Real quick, Michael, before we get to KU, and I promise this question as a point, what was your dream job when you were a little kid?
Fortunate, I think, in that I learned pretty early and was able to kind of make decisions
based off of that. So I think for me right now, I'm literally kind of living the dream.
Okay, the reason I ask is we just shared a story about a person in California, your home state, California, who was trying to pull people over. He was dressing up as a firefighter. And like he had his own fake fire department that like he came up with a LinkedIn page for it and like a whole logo and everything. Except this wasn't a small child wanting to make believe it was a 42-year-old man. We shared that a little bit earlier. So I was curious, like a kid, I get it, but I wasn't sure if you had ever wanted to be a firefighter, Michael.
No, I'm not a big running into danger. That's not my MO.
No, I'm with you. I will let the real heroes have all that honor. That
yeah,
certainly not for me. Well, let's get to the latest KU news from around the world of KU sports, and there's a lot going on. I will start with something positive from the basketball side of things. Yesterday, it was announced right around 10 a.m. KU versus North Carolina, home and home series in 24 and 25, couple November games. This is awesome. I think this is great. I am a longtime North Carolina hater for non-KU fan reasons. That goes well beyond when I was a KU fan growing up. But this is incredible, Michael. Two programs that are intertwined, and you really can't tell the story of one without the other. How cool is this? Of all the great home and homes that KU has put together in recent years, is this the best of the bunch?
Oh, it for sure is. I mean, look, you're talking about what is probably, if the standings stay, right, the two of the three most winningest college basketball programs ever. This is huge, and it's a lot different than a Big 12 SEC challenge where between Kansas and Kentucky, where it feels like it's just kind of a match that's made every single year. Like this was two schools coming together to really decide that this was something that they wanted to do. And I think it's awesome that Kansas will get to go to play at North Carolina for the first time ever, and also that Hubert Davis and the North Carolina team can come to Allen Fieldhouse and see what it's like to play at Kansas. So I think it's really cool overall, and something that I think nowadays, right, I'm not sure if you see a ton of this where really kind of high-level schools scheduling games with each other. I think it's great, and I think that a lot of other programs and high-level teams across the college basketball landscape should do this. Because what are games? They're supposed to be fun, and especially if they're in November, it's low stakes. Teams are still figuring it out, and it creates a fun atmosphere for fans.
I understand why Roy Williams never scheduled North Carolina when he was at KU, or never scheduled KU while he was at UNC. I understand that. But isn't it kind of crazy with how intertwined these programs are that UNC has played in Lawrence once, and it was 63 years ago, and KU's never been to Chapel Hill? That seems crazy to me.
It is crazy, especially when you think about, I think, the other teams that Kansas has played, right? You think about them setting it up with Villanova, a home and home. Obviously, KU will play UConn at home this year. We'll see what happens with the Big 12 Big East Challenge if KU does go to UConn at some point down the road. It's crazy to think about, right? Kansas and North Carolina, two of the most historic programs around for a long time, and to think that they've not played on each other's soil very often is kind of crazy. So I'm super excited for it and really fired up.
Our guest is Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline for Jayhawk Weekly, which we do every week at this time here on 580 Sports Talk. Check out Michael's work at Fog.net and check him out on Twitter at MSwain247. All right, Michael, let's get to the weird stuff. Yesterday, here's what we know. Kansas offensive lineman Joseph Krause was arrested yesterday, and he has been charged with an aggravated criminal threat causing terror, evacuation, or disruption because there was an apparent bomb threat called into the KU football facilities. That is what we know. I have two questions. One question and then a follow-up. My question is, what? And my follow-up is, what?
Yeah, right. That was kind of my reaction late last night when it kind of came through that he was officially arrested and it was, as of earlier today, still in custody. Like, this is serious, and it's just crazy to think about that a person on a team would do something like this that would impact the coaches, his teammates, and things like that. It's joke or not, right? I think that's probably, if you're going to try and lend some courtesy again, and that's assuming, right, that this is all intertwined. It's hard to not say that it is, but it's one of those things too that's not been 100% confirmed. But with that said, it just a joke. Like, what are we thinking here? And if it's not a joke, I hope he's able to get help to resolve whatever he's thinking about, because it's serious. And if you look at the charges, right, You look at Class 5 felony, which in the state of Kansas, there's kind of 10 classes. He's smack dab in the middle. Obviously, we'll have to see how it plays out, but I mean, this is serious stuff, and it's just crazy to think that someone on a team with the season, right? Fall camp starts next week. We're 7 days away, right? It's starting to get really into football season, and to do something like this at this point, it's just hard to really create any reasoning in your head why you do it.
Michael, I think for me, it's just, and I understand that, Joe's reputation is of, kind of a jokester, the funny guy, kind of the class clown guy. And I can understand, thinking something might be funny and it ends up not really being funny at all. But I have a hard time seeing why anyone would want to do this. And I imagine, and I know KU has not said anything other than they're aware of the situation and that they won't for a while. But I would imagine Lance Leipold probably like steam coming out of his ears like a cartoon when this all happened, because he's usually pretty mild-mannered, and you know that. But when he gets fired up, he gets pretty damn fired up. And I would imagine this was, when this all happened, probably to the likes of which the public has never seen.
Yeah, and what does it come down to, right? I think what Lance Leipold would probably say is it's a selfish decision. You're going to do this, if the reasoning is it was a joke, right? You're going to do this as a joke. Like, there are a million other things to do that are funnier as a joke. Like, come on. And I'm sure, Lance Leipold's saying the same exact thing. And also, think about this, right? We're a week away from fall camp, right? The most anticipated probably football season in over a decade. And this is what we're talking about. Not Devin Neal, not Jalen Daniels, Big 12 Media Days, not the team. Like, this is what now is going to be talked about. And what's Lance Leipold, what's the first couple questions going to be when he talks to media next Tuesday? This. And I'm sure that really frustrates him, because you're talking about a program that has a lot of momentum, and now to have something like this happen, it just reverses some of the, at least, publicity that would be coming out at this point, right? So I think he'd be rightfully upset. I think his teammates would probably be rightfully upset as well.
And we know he's not the kind of guy who loves narrative, right? I mean, Lance Leipold he wants to talk about football and the real things and the serious things. He's not, serious in terms of the game and his team. I will just say this: I do not envy you being in that room for that press conference next week, Michael.
Yeah, it's, when you think about, right, this time last year too, right, you're talking about Trevor Wilson and Tanaka Scott and everything that happened there. So, right, it's one of those things where, hey, you're talking about it being a year between events like this, but still, this is serious stuff. And it was serious last year when the stuff happened with, Tanaka and Trevor Wilson. So I just can't. I can't imagine how frustrated probably the coaches are right now, that they probably lost a half day of work yesterday, having to go home and have to evacuate the building and deal with all this stuff. So it's just unfortunate overall.
Talking to Michael Swain, who joins us from fog.net and 24/7 Sports. That's where you can go to find all of his fantastic coverage of the Kansas Jayhawks. You can also follow Michael on Twitter at mswain247. He joins us for Jayhawk Weekly on 580 Sports Talk and on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Speaking of legal matters, Michael, over on the basketball side, the men's basketball team, Arterio Morris, it feels like things have been moving there. A lot of information has come out over the last 24 hours or so about his case down in Texas, his domestic case. And I'll be careful about the wording because I don't want to get anything potentially wrong here. What currently is his status with the program? What is the status legally? And what are the odds that he makes the trip to Puerto Rico with the rest of the squad?
Well, so let's go back a little bit, right? I think probably about a month ago, the assumption was that he was not going to go to Puerto Rico. He had a trial date that was set to begin August 2nd. Today was actually supposed to be the day that his jury was going to be selected for that trial. What has happened now is that I'm getting real into legal stuff here, Brendan. It's a lot going on. So basically what happened yesterday, there was an affidavit for non-prosecution filed by basically the plaintiff, I believe is the right terminology, but basically the person that's pressing charges. And what that means is that they want the charges more or less to go away, that they don't want Arterio Morris to be prosecuted anymore. Now, in theory, you see that, right? And you think, okay, well, this is over. Well, not necessarily, because a continuance was granted now where the trial is not happening August 2nd. So Arterio Morris will be able to go to Puerto Rico with the rest of the team. But there is still a chance that this trial could be rescheduled for a later date. And at that point, you're probably looking at maybe a plea would be offered to Arterio. That seems, in terms of precedent, what the order of operations would be. And from there, it's just kind of a question of how it plays out. So this isn't over, But in terms of Arterio Morris being able to play Kansas basketball next week when the team goes to Puerto Rico, yes, he'll be able to be there. And it does seem like this case is trending in a direction where he'll be able to be available for Kansas basketball this season.
Yeah, it's a bizarre case to a degree because it does feel like things have moved really quickly. And obviously there's a lot of legalese involved, and we appreciate you breaking all of that down for us. As for this trip to Puerto Rico, and I know that there are other more serious real world things going on, but I would imagine from the basketball team and roster perspective, while KU is still looking to fill the other scholarships and figure out what this whole roster is going to look like, I would imagine, Michael, that Bill Self's going to be pleased to have as many of his full roster players there and playing as possible. And I assume Morris, who sounds like he's had a great summer so far, is a big piece of that. And I would imagine there's some relief that he can get in that extra work with this group next week.
100%, right? Because you're looking at Kansas. What is it now after the Marcus Adams situation? What you're probably talking about 10 scholarship players, right? It's not a lot, especially for a trip where you're going to play 3 games kind of in 6 days or so. So it's going to be a lot on those guys, but I think it's a huge trip coming up, right? You're looking at this being a roster that's got some returning guys, right? You think about DeJuan, Kevin McCullough, and KJ Adams, and even Zach Clemens, but you're really looking at the key members of this team that if Kansas is going to go on and compete for national title, it's going to be because guys like Nick Timberlake, guys like Arterio Morris, Hunter Dickinson, obviously, they all hit their ceiling. And I think the ability for all these guys to get chemistry together against teams at this point in time is huge. And I think if you're going to pick a type of team that needs an international trip like this, it's this exact type of team where they need to gel and they need to really be able to get a lot of time on task together, because this isn't a group like the title team, right? A couple of years ago where they all played together for multiple years, right? And you're just adding one guy in Remy Martin. This is a whole different situation where I think the key guys you're going to be relying upon are all guys that haven't really played a lot of basketball together. So this trip's going to be huge in that fact.
After all this legal stuff, I imagine it's going to feel good to have some games in the next week or so, huh?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm more looking forward to the pads popping in practice. I can't wait for football season. That's what I am the most excited about. And obviously I think that the basketball will be a lot of fun to watch, but I'm curious to see what, obviously I think the teams look like they're going to be strong for the Puerto Rico trip, but I'm interested to see what those games are like. But for me, pads popping late next week sounds like a great time.
Yeah, I think as we talked about, I don't think anyone is more ready for that, maybe than you, other than Lance Leipold. Michael Swain covers KU, does it better than absolutely anybody, and you can find his work over at fog.net, which is part of the 24/7 Sports Network. You can also follow Michael on Twitter. I recommend that you do. His handle is at mswain247, Twitter, X, whatever it's called. Michael joins us every Tuesday at this time for Jayhawk Weekly. Michael, we appreciate the time as always, man. Thank you so much.
Definitely. Thanks, guys. Talk to you next week.
That's Michael Swain. Awesome stuff on everything going on with KU. And boy, there is a lot of it right now.
Yeah, too much of it, as you said, away from the fields of play and distracting from the almost resoundingly positive things that are going on the fields of play.
I don't remember which game it was. I want to say it was midway through the season when Leipold just exploded at a referee. I mean, he looked like I haven't seen a coach since Mangino on the KU sideline look that mad during a game.
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine what yesterday was like for Coach Leipold.
There may have been things flying around.
I would not be surprised about that. I would totally understand. We got half an hour left of 580 Sports Talk, and it's coming up after our national and local news. edition of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you. Thanks for stopping by and hanging out with us today. Royals baseball coverage begins at the bottom of this hour. 5:30 pregame start time on the Royals Radio Network. Boys in Blue taking on the Guardians tonight, looking to win the series. They will do that if they can win tonight's game. First pitch is set for 6:10, and all the action will be right here on 580 WIBW. Aaron Savali going for the Guardians against Zach Greinke for the Royals tonight. Hopefully the positive starting pitching vibes for the Royals can continue. Since we're off at 5:30, we'll get to a final word in just a little bit. But first, let's dive right on into a day full of 580 Sports Talk headlines. A lot to get to from the NFL today. A lot of personnel news. And let's start with one storyline that, at least for now, has come to a close. Saquon Barkley has agreed to a one-year contract with the New York Giants. It is a one-year, $11 million contract, maximum value $11 million. So what this deal looks like, it is 1 year, and it is guaranteed for $10.1 million. That is his salary for the year. That is the same amount as the franchise tag. Essentially, what Saquon is getting in addition to that is $900,000 in incentives that are all tied to the Giants making the playoffs. That is the incentive. You get an extra $900K if the Giants make the playoffs this year, which business-wise for the Giants, honestly, kind of makes sense. Like, all right, we keep being told that you're our entire offense and the rest of it sucks without you. So if we make the playoffs on your back, you'll get a little extra money, which actually is kind of a smart negotiation tactic. And if you're Saquon, here's your two options. You either get your $10.1 million, and then if you make the playoffs, you get more, or you sit out and see ya. I would probably take the better contract too. The reason they can work on this deal, by the way, because I saw some people asking about this, the rule about the franchise tag deadline that passed last week is you cannot sign a long-term contract, a multi-year contract for a franchise tag player after that date. This contract technically counts as the franchise tag. So this is not a long-term deal. It's technically more than the actual tag amount, but this counts as him being tagged. So if they decided, wow, Saquon, you had a really good year in 2023, let's tag you again in 2024. Then the second franchise tag rules would apply, and he'd be owed 125% of this year's salary, which is getting really into the weeds and numbers, and I understand that's hard to follow. Just know this counts as the franchise tag, even though he could make a little bit more than the tag number. I'm not surprised this got taken care of. I figured he was going to play. Good for the Giants because they got their best player back. Good for Saquon. Well, good for the fans. We get to watch Saquon Barkley play because he's awesome. And I hope he has a great year and can make some more money elsewhere the year after. The next question is, when is Josh Jacobs going to sign? I don't remember if you mentioned this yesterday. He apparently was seen at Harry Reid International Airport in Las Vegas yesterday, getting on a plane, not off a plane to get to Vegas. He was leaving Las Vegas, and it is unknown if or when he is going to return at any point to Raider camp. I don't know if he's going to get this contract that Saquon just got. Maybe he wants more. Maybe he says, you know what, screw it. Good for Saquon. I want more money.
Maybe he sees what the rest of us see, which is that this contract for Saquon Barkley sucks, man. It's not a win for Saquon Barkley insofar as, I mean, okay, he signed on the line, which is dotted. There's a little bit more money up front, but I guess it's a bet on how well his team will do with him, that he can make a little bit more money.
Mm-hmm.
But ESPN.com referred to this as a Secretariat at the Belmont level win for the Giants in negotiating. And that's not what you want to hear if you're on the other side of those negotiations, particularly if you are a running back and you are at a position where your cohorts, your peers across the league have started to notice, hey, we're not getting paid real well. We're not getting compensated when it comes to our second contracts. And it's a problem. We recognize this as a problem.
Mm-hmm.
This does not solve the problem or even come close. What do you think Saquon Barkley contributed to the running back Zoom summit that we talked about yesterday, knowing that this was lined up and on deck?
Couldn't have been a whole lot.
Yeah, he probably had one earbud in and the other earbud he had some music going.
He was watching TV.
Yeah, he had one eye on the Zoom and one eye on whatever he's binge watching, and every now and again going, "Yeah, dude, that's crazy. Yeah, man, that's wild."
No, I don't have any comments. I read you loud and clear.
No, you're right, man. You're right.
Add that to the Google Calendar.
A lot of that. You're right. I agree.
Anyone taking notes on this meeting?
Yeah, there's no provision that says they can't franchise him again, which sometimes you can get that worked into the contract.
I thought he would at least get, when I first saw this morning, it was the first thing I saw when I sat down. I was getting tires this morning. I sit down in the waiting room, and that's the first thing I see on my phone. And I thought, I bet with not that much more money, I bet he got a tag thing in there. No, he didn't, which is shocking.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would have. Which would you have rather had in his spot? The base franchise tag amount and then a provision you cannot tag me again, or the $900K playoff bonus?
You know what I'd rather have had? The same thing a month from now. Like, if you're making me that offer, I mean, I'll take it, but I'm not going to put myself through camp. I'll get myself ready at home.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I'll see you guys after preseason.
Man,
it doesn't make any kind of sense for me. I'm really surprised that this happened. But hey, if that's what Saquon Barkley truly wants, and he's ready to go and he's ready to play and ready to try and get the Giants back to the postseason where they reached last year, then good luck.
They better be good. I will tell you that, because while the AFC is still the better conference than the NFC for sure, just in the Giants' own division, you've got the Cowboys, who are going to, I don't think they're going to win anything, but they could be a playoff team. The Eagles are the best team in the NFC. I don't think the Commanders are better than the Giants, but I assume they will be at least a little bit better this coming year than last year. The South is bad, but someone's going to win that division. I think probably the Saints. The North is bad, but would you be surprised if the Vikings and like the Lions, or if Love is good, the Packers both made the playoffs? In the West, you've got two of arguably the three best teams in the conference, in the Seahawks and the 49ers in that division. There's only 7 spots. Like, it's not like 10 teams get in from each conference. They better be one of those top 6. Otherwise, it's going to look even worse for Saquon. Other personnel news today. Zach Martin, the starting offensive guard, potential future Hall of Famer guard for the Dallas Cowboys, did not report to camp and may not report to camp. And again, this is
a new deal.
This is not, I'm going to show up and I'm not going to practice and I'm going to have a phantom injury. Matt Verderam talked to us about that yesterday, the hold in. Zach Martin just said, screw it. I want more money. You owe me more because I'm a Hall of Famer. Pay me. And so he's just not showing up. He'll pay the fines. He's doing what Chris Jones is doing.
Right.
While that is going on, the Cowboys just gave a 5-year extension to Trevon Diggs, the cornerback. 5 years, $97 million total. I have not seen a guarantee on that contract. That is obviously the most important number, but he just got a 5-year extension while they're
$42.3 million.
Okay. That's a good number.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. While their best offensive player, Zach Martin, is not showing up to camp. That's not especially good.
And they keep doing these long-term deals, these 5-6-year contracts. Most players get 3 or 4-year deals.
Mm-hmm.
You notice that star players more and more sign 3-4-year deals. That's so when the market blows up, they can go back and they can renegotiate. And when the market blows up, I should be more specific with what I'm saying here. When the market shifts and when elite players at that position start making more money, then you can make more money on your next contract. That's what's happened with Zach Martin. He signed a 6-year contract extension, and now there are a lot of guards out there who aren't as good as Zach Martin, because I don't know that any guard is as good as Zach Martin, and they're making more money, substantially more money than he is. And this doesn't sit well, naturally, with Zach Martin. So that's why he wants more money. But the Cowboys clearly have learned nothing, because here's 5 years for Trevon Diggs.
This is a total philosophical thing. Diggs is a good player.
Yeah.
I don't think he's as good as that 11 interception year, but he's a good player, no doubt. I would rather have an elite guard than an elite corner, because you know who falls off quicker? Corners. I'm not sure any position other than running back falls off more quickly than cornerback.
No, that's a fact.
Unless you're Darrelle Revis and you can be good for a decade. So I I don't know about that. Other quick personnel news. I think I had one other in here. I had two. One, the Seattle Seahawks 3-year extension for Uchenna Nwosu. You like that deal?
I do. I like it a lot. Nwosu was really good last year. Really underrated player.
Really good player. 3 years, $59 million total value. Also, Jimmy Graham is back.
Yo, when I saw Jimmy Graham signs with the Saints, I said, "Oh, how nice! A 1-day contract so he can retire a Saint." How nice! No, it's a 1-year contract so he can play football.
I thought that was a typo. 1 year? No. You mean 1 day? No, 1 whole year. That's good luck. I don't really know what New Orleans is doing. I really do not understand how they've built their team. But best of luck.
Did he play last year?
No, he's been out of the league since 21.
That's right.
Bizarre. Truly bizarre.
Great quote, though, from Mickey Loomis, GM of the Saints. Maybe I'll get the respect of my daughter back because she killed me when we traded him years ago. That was her favorite player. I think she'll be excited. That's always good when that's how you're making personnel decisions.
Man, that's like Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the Browns, meeting a homeless guy in Cleveland who's like, yo, take Johnny football. And then he did. Oh, my God. Well, that is your update from around training camp and some big personnel news around the NFL today.
First story for me in our 5A Sports Talk headlines, a scary one from the world of college basketball. Bronny James, the son of LeBron James, who is currently going through workouts as a freshman at USC, collapsed during practice yesterday and had to be rushed to the ICU. He is out of the ICU and currently in stable condition, as medical staff was able to treat Bronny on the scene and take him immediately to the hospital. This is the second time in 2 years that a USC freshman has suffered a cardiac arrest during practice. Last year it was, and I'm trying to find the name, and it's not in this article.
It is a very long name. I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah. Vincent Iwuchukwu.
Yes.
Vincent Iwuchukwu suffered the same cardiac arrest last year during a preseason practice and was able to be resuscitated by the on-site medical personnel and would go on to recover sufficiently that he played in 14 games for the Trojans last season. It is certainly a wonderful sign that Bronny James is already out of the ICU in such a short time frame. That bodes really well for both his physical and his mental recovery. And hopefully he can be back on a basketball court very, very soon. But a scary, scary deal. And it just goes to show the importance at every level of sports, have an AED on site. Those things save lives. They saved Damar Hamlin's life.
Yep.
Very, very well could have saved Bronny James's life. AEDs save lives. Have them on hand. Cardiac arrest, HCM, hydro. I'm gonna get it wrong. Let me make sure I get it right.
Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy.
That is it. That is the most frequent killer of high school athletes, young athletes. Have those AEDs on site. Check them. Make sure they're charged. Make sure they work. They could save a life.
I also think it's a time to share the PSA. If you have a child who's an athlete, if you are an athlete, even if you're out of high school, if you're just an amateur athlete as an adult, certainly if you have a high school athlete in your home or you know them, if you're a coach, make sure kids are getting checked out. Like, I know medical procedures, even preventive ones, are really expensive. I understand that, but if it is at all possible, get your heart checked out when you're a young athlete, because this is scary, and it is, things like this could strike when you do not expect it. And there are a lot of diseases or syndromes or defects. Shaquille O'Neal's son, he had a defect in an artery that was found during a random screening. He had to have open heart surgery a couple years ago, and thank God he ended up being okay. And it manifests differently in different generations. I'm not a doctor, obviously, and thank God for that. But I mean, the evidence is all out there. This can be really dangerous, and thank God that Bronny James seems to be okay.
Soledad O'Brien did a piece on this for Real Sports, HBO's Real Sports, back in February in the wake of the Damar Hamlin incident. It's about 100 high school age athletes every year that die from cardiac arrest. And having AEDs on site keep that number from being any higher. And hopefully we can get more of them into every school, every athletic facility, and save even more lives. But kudos to the USC medical staff. Gosh, that has to be traumatizing for the players, the coaches, the medical staff to have to go through that twice in a year span. That's awful.
I was filling in last year on the Washburn basketball coaches show, and I was talking to Brett Ballard, and it was the week after. It was just 2 days, in fact, after the DeMar Hamlin incident in Cincinnati. And I asked Brett, what was your thought on this as a coach? And he said, well, I've had experiences with this. And when he was an assistant at Tulsa for Danny Manning, they had a player who collapsed and said, thankfully we had great trainers and we had an AED and we, they never played basketball again, but we kept them part of the program and he's all healthy now. This could happen at any time. Get screened and have the equipment. It will save a life.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Next headline for me today. Can you imagine what $332 million looks like?
No.
That was the annual offer that Saudi Arabian soccer club Al Hilal reportedly offered Kylian Mbappe, the all-world superstar footballer for Paris Saint-Germain, the best team in France. Are they in the Champions League every time around?
Every year, and they never win it. It's a whole thing.
Well, yeah, because League One's not very good. It's a whole thing.
Ligue 1.
Yeah, it's a big deal. He is a big deal, Kylian Mbappe. If you know anything about global soccer, you've heard of him. Well, Al Hilal was the team that Lionel Messi said thanks but no thanks to when they offered him allegedly like billions of dollars to come play for them. They have now offered a similar amount to Kylian Mbappe. It would be the largest transfer fee in the history of international soccer.
So that $332 million, that's the transfer fee. That's from Al Hilal and their ownership, which it will surprise you not at all to learn is the Public Investment Fund.
Mm-hmm.
That is the fee that would go from the ownership of the club to the club that Mbappe plays for currently, Paris Saint-Germain. That would give them then the negotiating rights to sign Mbappe to a contract. The alleged details of the contract were 1 year and $1 billion to play 1 year for this club and then offer him the option to move on to the club that he really wants to play for and that PSG won't sell him to, which is Real Madrid in Spain. So the idea was, you're not going to sell him to Real Madrid, but sell him to us. We'll pay you $1 billion, literally $1 billion with a B for one season to play in our league and try and legitimize our league and legitimize the PIF some more. And then you can go play where you really want to play.
Now, according to multiple reports, including the Associated Press, Mbappe is not interested in doing that. He has no desire to go play in Saudi Arabia before ending up in Madrid. I did not realize how many players had left.
Yes, there are a lot of, if you follow European club soccer at any, with any real depth, there are a lot of recognizable names that have taken the Saudi Pro League money. The Saudi Pro League answers the question, what if the MLS, but worse, and you couldn't watch it on TV and it was 130 degrees at every game?
Yeah, as far as I know, they're not good. And now they just have a bunch of really highly paid superstars on teams that are not good.
Mm-hmm.
Like Karim Benzema, I guess, is going.
Yeah, big deal.
Roberto Firmino.
Big deal. Former Liverpool player, Champions League winner. Obviously, Cristiano Ronaldo is already there.
N'Golo Kante,
yeah.
I'd heard of him.
World Cup winner.
Yeah.
Premier League winner.
Yeah.
Jordan Henderson, captain of a Champions League winner at Liverpool. A lot of guys. A lot of guys are going over there and taking that big money because it is, again, it's like Live Golf, except for soccer.
Yeah, well, best of luck.
Yeah.
Any other headlines for you?
Real quick, it sounds like Michigan head football coach Jim Harbaugh is going to be suspended for the first 4 games of the 2023 season, and some of his assistants may be suspended as well. It's tied to an NCAA recruiting investigation in which Harbaugh faces a level 1 violation for not cooperating with NCAA enforcement. Told some lies. Apparently, breakfast hamburgers were involved. It's a whole thing. We don't have the time to get into all of the granular details, but level 1 violations, suspensions typically are 6 games. They are negotiating, Michigan with the NCAA, to get the suspension down to 4 games for Jim Harbaugh. If you're curious, Michigan's first 4 games of the upcoming season are all home games. They are against East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, and Rutgers. It literally does not matter who the head coach is for those games. It could be me or you. and Michigan would be 4-0 going to Nebraska the next week.
I will do it for a fraction of Jim Harbaugh's daily salary. I will absolutely do it.
You and me could co-coach.
Well, you got to take a quick timeout. We'll come back, wrap up 580 Sports Talk with the final word next. Wrapping up 580 Sports Talk. We've got a quick final word before we send you to the Royals Radio Network. And you're up first.
As our listeners have helpfully pointed out in our YouTube comments today, it is hot outside, and it is going to continue to be extremely hot outside today and probably for the next few days here as well. Probably the next week or so, maybe next week and change. It's going to be really, really hot. So make sure you take good care of yourself. You stay hydrated. Barbara points out in the YouTube comments, there's a list of cooling stations online that the city of Topeka has put out if you are in Topeka. But yeah, make sure that you stay out of the heat as best you can and go to those cooling centers if you need to.
Final word for me, please follow that advice. But also, John Sherman, you didn't need to say anything today, and you didn't need to give us a bunch of unsubstantiated numbers about economic impact. Royals fans want to know if the team is going to be any good, and if you're going to put any effort into actually making this a competitive major league team. So at least publicly, maybe stay away from the stadium stuff, at least for a little bit, and maybe show a little more care for the actual team itself. That does it today for 580 Sports Talk. We're back tomorrow as soon as the Royals and Guardians are done. We'll talk to Tim Fitzgerald. We'll hear from some Chiefs players and more. That is all coming up tomorrow from just after 3 o'clock until 6. For Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. This is 580 Sports Talk. After a quick break, we'll send you off to the Royals Radio Network.